running parallel?
I think so. I think that there's a clear there's a clear parallel, as you were saying, between a successful small business community and thriving business community and the success of a municipality. And I think that and there's a yin and yang to that, because there's the city also needs to play a major role in helping. We're not in the role of economic development per se, but we are in the role of encouraging growth and not being a barrier, but being encouraging
Right.
that growth and trying to find out what we do to get there. And that's been part of what I want to do. That's been that we haven't done previously, is having regular roundtables, whether they're on a quarterly basis, at least initially, to be able to sit down with local business communities. And even in a small city like Laconia, there's definitely 3 distinct areas. You've got the downtown, you've got the Lakeport area, and then you've got the Weirs area. And they even sometimes look at themselves as having unique...
across the tracks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
right.
Good reference. Good reference.
Right.
And so I think that even in that situation, getting them around the table together, along with key city officials, myself, some city councilors, the planning director, things of that nature, to be able to have those discussions. And sometimes it's not even a matter of that there's some magic answer out there. It's more of it's amazing how much gets done once people start talking to each other and start understanding that the city isn't fighting against small business, and small business is trying their hardest. So what can we do to make sure that we're all pulling in the same direction,
right,
instead of working against each other? And I think that's the more we can do that, I think, as far as long-term growth for the city will be critical. But having those discussions will be important, because just opening that door to be able to have that discussion so that everyone's perception becomes reality, and it's a matter of trying to make sure that everybody is on the reality level that we should be, and kind of build from there. So, but that's definitely one of the biggest factors I see. And as you said, going back to the plan, is we've been fiscally responsible and will continue to be, but we also need to be able to, just like a business does, is take advantage of opportunities as they become available. So that way we're well positioned, just not just fiscally, but also just quality of life issues and things of that nature. So.
Yeah, I mean, and talking about the whole services and the whole idea of how the local government works, and how you're saying not fighting with the business community. I grew up and had a business and lived in Philadelphia for many years, and when some people kind of complain about either the DMV or certain things in this state or the local area, I just kind of shake my head as you don't know how good you have it.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point, and I think that and that is the challenge. It's the challenge, and it's an advantage for being in a small community, is that it doesn't take forever to make
something
to
happen.
turn the ship around. It's not too difficult to go in a certain direction to accomplish
as opposed to a big
cruise
ship.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean it's not going to be without its wakes to go through. But I think that with a smaller community like the city of Laconia, we have a lot of opportunities, and we have a lot of great, as we talked about, business people, but also a local small government that's from a city and county level that's willing to work together to try to accomplish that. So you're right. When you talk about a larger municipality, it becomes much more difficult, as it is even with a larger company. The scope is much more difficult to change as far as from a culture standpoint. And to some extent, that's what we're talking about here. But for the most part, the good thing is that even with the things I would like to see done and want to do, they're simply add-ons to an already very strong foundation. It's not like a lot of time has to be dealt with rebuilding things. But the biggest challenge we face as a community, and not just Laconia, but every municipality in the state is seeing this and is getting hit hard, is again the state woes, budgeting woes that they have. I think the figure was somewhere around $220 million they still had to make up, and that's being pushed down obviously to the county, and most specifically to the city level, in fact,
and to the property taxpayer.
Correct. And just this week, the Governor Lynch held a mayor's meeting where we met with him for a little over an hour, so that we could specifically talk about what those issues are, what the specific impact would be to each community, and allowed time for feedback. And of course, discussions came up in reference to how open is the state for gaming, and opening up gaming, and some of the other issues that we're facing. So Yeah, and that's a little bit different. Not that a business community doesn't have external influences. Obviously, it does. But
talk about gaming for a second. Have
Sure.
you been paying attention to both sides of that argument? Because on one side of it is it's a revenue generator. On the other side of it is it's a vice that takes it basically refunnels somebody's funds. And growing up in Philadelphia, living in Philadelphia, we had Atlantic City.
Sure. Sure.
40 miles away, and you certainly. My brothers worked in Atlantic City, and they now work in Las Vegas. And they said one of the big differences between working in Atlantic City was all the local gamblers were gambling to pay their mortgage, which is never a good idea. In Las Vegas, a little different. They're on vacation. They're enjoying themselves for the most part.
Sure.
What do you think about that whole topic?
Well, it's been no mystery of where I stand on it. And here's the thing. I think when I say that I support expanded gaming, I expand it in a very controlled way in how we do it, how we go about it. And I think the argument, again, as you said, both sides. Some are saying it's just a short-term fix, it's a Band-Aid to fix, a serious wound. But the challenge, or not the challenge, the thing that I think is lost is that people say, well, it's a short-term fix. It's really not, because of the monies it's going to bring in. It'll be a consistent, again. And
it falls down to personal responsibility. I mean, if someone chooses to spend their time, their money,
right, and again,
playing a video slot machine, that's a personal choice too, and you can't have government interfere with those personal choices.
Yeah, so and I think that so that there's really two arguments. One is that we're not even sure, is this really enough money to infuse into the state, and I think it would certainly be a healthy start. The other is the social responsibility. In other words, what is it the right thing to do? And I was at a legislative breakfast not that long ago at the community college, and one of the state representatives, I think, said it relatively eloquently in saying,